You're at the cutting edge of cardiovascular sciences. I'm your host, John Cook. I'm professor and chair of the Department of Cardiovascular Sciences here at Houston Methodist Research Institute. And today we're joined by Dr. Yibing Chung from Yale. And I'll introduce you to him now. He is a great speaker and guest today. We're looking forward to hearing about his wonderful work on iPSC-derived stem cells and their differentiation into vascular smooth muscle cells for the purpose of making tissue-engineered blood vessels. Dr. Chung, welcome.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the kind invitation.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you on the show. Just for the audience, I'll trace your steps from in academia. You started at Nanjing in biochemistry, got your bachelor's there, and then came to Texas. You were at UTMD, University of Texas MD Anderson, in the Department of Molecular Genetics there, and did your PhD there, and then got recruited away by Ken Chen to UCSD. And then I guess you guys all moved to Harvard. After that, you were at MGH to do your postdoctoral work, and then from there you were recruited to Yale as a junior faculty member, and you've continued to do great work and are a major influencer there on the Yale campus, running the Stem Cell Forum. And you're also an influencer in our research community generally as associate editor in JACC on their Basic Science Journal and member of the editorial board of Circulation Research. And you've done wonderful work, well-funded. You're on a lot of study sections with NIH and generally just doing a great job for the community and a great job on your own research, which we'll be hearing about momentarily. But first, Dr. Chung, tell us a little bit about your background. How was it that you came to Texas as a graduate student?
John, thank you for the question. Houston is very dear to me, and I consider Houston as my hometown. I came to Houston on August 22nd, 1995 as a graduate student to MD Anderson Cancer Center. And I spent 6 years in Houston to pursue my graduate research. I have all the sweet memory about Houston. And Houston Methodist Hospital is also very dear to me. My older daughter, Valerie, was born in Houston Methodist Hospital. So very wonderful memory. And I came to U.S. in 1995. With idea to learn science and technology and then contribute to the society. I used to be a student. Now I'm a teacher, so I enjoy teaching students and help them to advance their careers, helping postdocs to become independent faculty. So that's what I love to do every day.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you've been also successful as a mentor. You've trained quite a few postdocs, and some of them have ended up as faculty elsewhere or leaders in industry. Tell us about that process. What makes a successful mentor in science?
It's a humbling experience to grow and learn together with our mentees. I started in the MD Anderson Cancer Center as a molecular biologist. And then in UCSD and Mass General Hospital, I learned cardiovascular research, studying at a year as independent scientist. We would like to use stem cells to generate a new heart tissue and a new blood vessel for patient care. So those are wonderful new areas for me as well. So I learn from students, from postdocs, and they learn from me. So it's a bi-directional education activity. So basically from learning and teaching all go together with trainees.
Well, wonderful. We're looking forward to having you teach us as well in just a moment. Before we start, why don't we just remind the audience that if you want to ask a question, you can do so during the show. If you're online, go to pollev.com. That's POLLEV.com. Enter DeBakey, DEBAKEY, and respond to that activity. Alternatively, you can join us by text. Just send your questions to us by text, 37607, and text DeBakey, DEBAKEY, and then just text in your message, and we'll get your question, and we'll ask Dr. Chung what's on your mind. All right. Well, I think we'll move to your presentation then, Dr. Chung. Why don't you bring up your first slide, and we'll get started.
Okay. Can you see one screen or two screens?
I can see your screen.
Fantastic. So thank you all for your time and efforts to join this seminar. I would like to share with you utilizing stem cells for cardiovascular tissue engineering and regeneration. I'm an associate professor at Yale School of Medicine, and with joint appointment in Department of Pathology and Biomedical Engineering. I have to organize Yale campus-wide stem cell research forum. It's my great pleasure to share with you our research. I would like to start with this disclosure slide. There's no financial disclosure for this presentation. I would like to share the cardiovascular differentiation utilizing human pluripotent stem cells and touching about vascular smooth muscle cell disease and engineered vascular blood vessel. I will also talk about congenital heart disease and the tissue engineered postural conduit project. As you all know, vascular disease due to atherosclerosis is the largest cause of morbidity and mortality in the developed world. Vascular grafts are one of the therapeutic options. The patient's autologous vein are usually the top choice. However, sometimes either patients are too old or they finished their own veins. So alternative approaches need to be found. In those cases, the synthetic vascular graft could be utilized. However, those grafts are prone to infection and they cannot be remodeled. The tissue engineered vascular graft provide a very interesting opportunity for the vascular graft replacement. Human primary vascular smooth muscle cells derived from donors can be expanded and seeded onto polyglycolic acid biodegradable scaffold. Through culturing, these cells can generate tissue engineered blood vessel, in abbreviation TBV. After decellularization, the engineered vascular blood vessel can be stored as off-the-shelf product. Clinical trial utilizing human decellularized TBVs were implanted into the arms of 60 patients for hemodialysis access, 40 in Poland, 20 in USA. At 6 months, 63% of patients had primary patency, 73% had primary cystic patency, 97% had secondary patency. 1 year later, about 28% of patients had primary patency, 38% had primary cystic patency, and 89% had a secondary patency. There was no dilatation observed from the patients. So this clinical phase 2 trial indicated the potential application of human engineered vascular grafts. So in our group, we try to use stem cells to provide different sources of the vascular muscle or cardiovascular cells for repair regeneration. Starting from patients with cardiovascular disease, we introduce the Yamanaka factors, the stem cell factors that can induce the somatic cells such as skin biopsy fibroblast cells or the blood cells, the mononuclear blood cells, and making these somatic cells into self-renewable pluripotent stem cells, so-called iPS cells. Utilizing the basic biology knowledge, we can coax these stem cells into the patient-specific heart cells. For example, we can make the stem cells to differentiate into the beating heart cells. So if in a petri dish we can reproduce the heart cell defects, we can perform the repurposing drug screening. So at the Yale West Campus, we have 6,000 FDA-approved drugs that can be used to treat the disease in the dish. So if there is a hit, we can modify the candidate drug and then generate a new medicine for disease treatment. At early stage of the disease, we can find a new small molecule, but when at the end stage heart failure or vascular failure, when small molecules do not work, we want to generate a new heart tissue or new blood vessel tissue for repair and regeneration. Several years ago, we used human iPS cells through the embryonic body strategy. We differentiated the cells into the vascular smooth muscle cells. I apologize. The cursor is moving. The laser pointer seems to move not so smoothly. You can see that the iPS cells, they express stem cell marker OCT4. Once they differentiate into smooth muscle cells, the smooth muscle cell express the smooth muscle cell marker SMA and SM22 and capone. And when we use TGF beta to treat the vascular smooth muscle progenitor cells, they can express a myosin heavy chain. Without the need for any FACS sorting, we can generate about 200 million vascular smooth muscle cells. Utilizing these vascular smooth muscle cells, we can seed them onto a biodegradable scaffold, which was wrapped around silicon tubing. This peristaltic pump can provide can push the PBS through the silicon tubing, and then that provides the cyclic stretch activity, thus stretching the scaffold and leading to the cells to be stretched. The vascular small cells love to be stretched and then generate a robust vascular graft. Because these are human vascular grafts, we want to implant the vascular graft into the noodle rats that are immune deficient so they can accept human cells. These iPS-derived vascular grafts, they are about 500 micron thickness, 1,500 millimeter mercury, rupture pressure, 150 gram suture retention. So the grafts contain cellulized material revealed by H&E staining, and the grafts contain the collagen by trichrome staining. There was no calcification from eliciting red staining, and the graft can express the small cell marker SMA, myosin heavy chain, and capone. And EVG staining revealed that there was no mature elastic fiber. Ongoing efforts right now in the lab is to generate elastic vascular graft. By implanting these iPS grafts into rat abdominal aorta, we observed that the inner diameter, outer diameter, and the length of the grafts remain intact, indicating the strong mechanical properties after implantation in vivo. The tensor stress and strain test from the pre-implanted grafts as well as explanted grafts indicated that the grafts after implantation maintain a mechanical property revealed by maximum modulus, ultimate tensor strength, and failure strength, all comparable for grafts before and after implantation. The explanted grafts show H&E staining and showing the collagen expression by trichrome and no calcification, and EVG staining showing that there were no mature elastin fibers. The histology utilizing human leukocyte A, which represent the human cell origin, and the small muscle cell marker SMA, calponin, and myosin heavy chain indicated that the human iPSC-derived vascular small muscle cells, they could survive after implantation in vivo. And the macrophage marker staining revealed by CD68 indicated minimum infiltration of macrophage. And a portion of the vascular graft surface also revealed staining of CD31 and VWF, indicating the host endothelial cells can repopulate to the surface. In order to make vascular graft off the shelf, we utilize the deceleration approach to generate acellular vascular graft, because the external matrix of the graft maintain over 90% of the mechanical strength. The cell, they generate the matrix, but they do not contribute a lot to the mechanical property. After implanting this acellular vascular graft, we demonstrated that in vivo these grafts can sustain the arterial blood pressure. These vascular grafts after decellularization, so through the DNA assay, we see complete decellularization of the cells, and the mechanical properties of the cell-based and the decelled vascular grafts were comparable. For the small grafts used for coronary artery bypass or peripheral artery bypass, so the inner diameters of those grafts are typically 1 to 5 millimeters. For such grafts, the endothelial function is required. Without endothelialization, the grafts would undergo clotting and stenosis after implantation. Utilizing this approach, we generate the human iPSC graft, and using iPSC-derived endothelial cells, and in this bioreactor, which provide arterial shear stress, the endothelial cells can attach to the luminous surface. By the CD31 and E0 staining, we see almost 100% coverage rate. These endothelial cells, they could follow the direction of the median flow. Since these endothelial cells are trained in our bioreactor, which mimic the in vivo blood flow, these grafts maintain patency without stenosis, without clotting. So recently, we try to make our grafts immunocompatible to other patients using the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. We removed the major histone complex 1 and complex 2 from the iPS cells. So this iPS-derived tissue could escape host T cell attack. In order to remove host macrophage and natural killer cell attack, we introduced CD47, the don't eat me signal, into the human iPS cell. So this MHC1 and 2 knockout and a CD47 knock-in iPS cell line, we gave a name universal human iPS cells. This iPS cell can generate universal endothelial cells. So this B2M is a common component of MHC1. C2TA is a common regulator of MHC2. By knocking out B2M, C2TA, we basically remove MHC1 and 2 signal from the iPS cell. And then CD47 provide extra protection from the macrophage and natural killer cell. The FACS sorting indeed indicated that our universal human iPS cells, they do not contain HLA-ABC, which represent MHC1, HLA-DR, which represent MHC2. So ongoing efforts are trying, so we try to use this universal iPS-AEC to coat the decellularized graft to generate graft that can be useful for patient care. So using iPS cell, we generate endothelial cells, smooth muscle cells, and then we generate a vascular graft, endothelialize them. We test in small animal rat model and test them in a large animal, the pig model. Such knowledge will guide us to utilize this allogenic immunocompatible iPS cells, which can produce the immunocompatible endothelial cells, smooth muscle cells that can be cryopreserved in large scale. And we can generate a vascular graft. After you decell the graft, you can store the graft in the fridge for up to 1 year. So grafts can be off the shelves. So endothelial cells, so you can store them from liquid nitrogen whenever you have the requirement for patient care. We can endothelialize the pre-established graft. These grafts can be utilized for small diameter peripheral artery and coronary artery bypass. In the next couple of slides, I would like to share, we try to utilize this vascular graft as another therapeutic application for single ventricle repair. So 1 out of 1,000 infants, they may have a defective left ventricle or right ventricle. In this cartoon, the patient has a defective left ventricle. So surgeons typically utilize the functional ventricle, in this case, the right ventricle, to provide a system circulation. Surgeon then would utilize the synthetic vascular graft to connect the venous blood from inferior vena cava to pulmonary artery, thus bypassing the defective ventricle. The challenge is this synthetic graft cannot be remodeled with the patient, cannot grow with the patient. And furthermore, it cannot provide a pumping activity. So therefore, the quality of these patients are suboptimal. Utilizing stem cell technology, we generate iPS cell from newborn baby, and then generate iPS cells, generate cardiomyocytes, the pumping cells in the heart. So we could utilize the cardiomyocytes and seed them onto decellularized heart matrix, generate EHT, so-called engineered heart tissue. So this engineered heart tissue can be trained in a bioreactor. So we can generate a tissue engineered positive conduit, so TEPC. For these patients, this is a wonderful providing wonderful opportunity for autologous repair and regeneration. So for surgery 1, BT shunt, surgeon connect aorta with pulmonary artery, providing more blood to the lung. Second surgery, Hamilton, surgeon connects superior vena cava to pulmonary artery, because superior vena cava are so close to pulmonary artery, so there's no need for ectopic engineered tissue. So it is the third surgery that that surgeon need to connect inferior vena cava to pulmonary artery. This step requires the engineered positive conduit. So basically, by the end of year 2 to 3, so we could provide the surgeon the autologous patient-specific bleeding conduit for patient care. So as I mentioned, we generate patient iPS cardiomyocytes. We use porcine heart as the matrix. We cut the porcine heart into thin slices using detergent to remove porcine heart cells and generate this cardiac collagen fiber with nice alignment. So the cardiomyocytes from human iPSC can align along the fiber, generate strong cardiac pumping tissue. So utilizing engineered heart tissue, which contain human cardiomyocytes and human cardiofibroblast, we then wrap the tissue around the vascular graft. Here we utilize the human umbilical artery as a prototype of vascular graft. Again, as I mentioned, the iPSC vascular graft can be utilized to support this engineered heart tissue. So this tissue can provide a pumping activity. This is a prototype approach. You can see the engineered heart tissue wrapped around the desired HUA, which was calibrated by this metal rod. In this bioreactor, we can measure the pressure generation by this beating conduit. This syringe pump provides preload to maintain luminal pressure, and we have Malar catheter that can be inserted directly beneath the beating conduit in the bioreactor, and then in this way we can measure the contractility in lifetime. So without pacing, the beating conduit can generate 0.68 millimeter mercury pressure. With 1 Hz, 2 Hz pacing, the luminal pressure generation can be enhanced, indicating that the tissues can respond to pacing and enhance the contractility. The ongoing effort in the lab is to utilize the electrodes to provide electrical pacing activity during the beating conduit generation. You can see these two electrodes. It can provide the field stimulation. The engineered heart tissue can respond and grow in response to the electrical stimulation. At week 1, we provide 2 Hz pacing, and week 2 to 3, we increase the pacing each day with 0.33 Hz addition, and by the end of the week 4, we generate this beating conduit. So the goal is to utilize this beating conduit to generate another pumping tube to help to squeeze the blood from inferior cava to patient lung. So in summary, we have generated the first implantable tissue engineered blood vessel based on human iPSC vascular smooth muscle cells. Human iPSC derived blood vessel, so they require the biomechanical media signal and biophysical stretch signaling, and the vascular graft maintain a robust mechanical property suitable for in vivo implantation. The human iPSC derived vascular graft can also provide effective scaffold for developing tissue engineered posterior conduit and electrical mechanical training for treating single ventricle congenital defects. I'd like to thank lab members Jesse, the leader for vascular graft engineering, and Jinchu Park and Mohammed Reels for the cardiac engineered heart tissue engineering, and thanks to the rest of the lab members for their contribution in stem cell engineering and tissue engineering. Dr. Laura Nicholson is our collaborator for vascular tissue engineering, and Dr. Campbell is our collaborator for cardiac engineering, and Dr. George Talisi and Dadik are surgeons who provide surgical support. Dr. Jordan Pober is a physician scientist with immunology and vascular biology expertise, guiding us for the universal iPSC related biological study. And Peter Gruber is a single ventricle cardiac surgeon that we learn a lot from his surgical expertise. Marshall Rowley from Worcester Polytechnic Institute for engineering collaboration. Thanks to American Heart Association, National Institute of Health, Clinic Stem Cell Funding, and Department of Defense for the financial support. Thank you all for your time and attention.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chung, for a spectacular presentation, and we're going to have some discussion about that in just a moment. I did want to remind everyone that's viewing the program that if you have questions, you can go to pollev.com, enter DeBakey, and respond to the activity. That's online, pollev.com, Pollev.com, enter DeBakey. And then you can also join us by text, 37607. Text DeBakey, and then text in your message. We'll get that message and we'll ask Dr. Chung. But let me start, Dr. Chung. It's really spectacular work that you've done using the iPSCs, induced pluripotent stem cells. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that technology, because that really, the generation of iPSCs by Yamanaka back in 2006 and then 2007, his two seminal papers, showed us that it was possible by overexpressing 4 master regulators of pluripotency to change a fibroblast, a skin cell, actually any somatic cell, into an induced pluripotent stem cell that had the ability to become any other cell in the body. It was pluripotent, induced pluripotent stem cell. And that truly galvanized the whole field of regenerative medicine. At that time, you were a junior faculty member. You were just joining Yale. That was back in 2008. iPSCs were highly notable development in the field of stem cells. Yamanaka went on 4 years later to get the Nobel Prize in 2012. Tell us what that was like. You were starting your laboratory at Yale, and Yamanaka's observation. How did that galvanize your own effort?
Yeah, thank you, John, for this question. I was training Dr. Kenny Chen's group and studying heart developmental biology. So in the lab, we also utilize the mouse embryonic stem cells as a model to generate cardiac progenitor cells. And I study heart development, the first heart field, second heart field, with this developmental biology knowledge. So this inspires me to think about the human system, how we could use cell biology, developmental biology, as an opportunity to study human disease and also human therapeutic application. As you know, we have very limited availability to human cardiovascular cells. And that encouraged me to consider human embryonic stem cells and human iPS cells. And I learned the human embryonic stem cells for a couple months from scientists in Dr. Ken Chen's group. And with that experience, after joining Yale, the postdoc scientist and I learned the human iPS cell culture, and then we learned how to generate a patient iPS cell using different technologies. That was a very rewarding experience, and learning together with our trainee, and then we established this technology. And more importantly, the foundation of developmental biology really helps me to think about the cardiovascular repair and regeneration. And from there, I'm very grateful that I met with Dr. Laura Nicholson, met with multiple physicians. They have different patient population with different cardiovascular disease. So then we utilize the patient iPSC technology for disease modeling and find a new medicine, and also using iPSC technology to generate cardiovascular cells for repair and regeneration. But more importantly, to think about the disease as off-the-shelf therapeutic approach, how we could make stem cell available for patients injured in acute situation. We think a lot about immunology off the shelf. So those are the latest efforts from our group.
Right, the iPSC technology did solve a lot of problems for the regenerative medicine field because there were political issues regarding embryonic stem cells, using human embryonic stem cells. Furthermore, using human embryonic stem cells, one had to deal with the, intrinsic immune recognition of those cells. They would be different from the patients that you might be putting them into, right, immunologically. But with iPSC technology, you could take a skin cell from a patient and then generate an iPSC that could be used to generate tissue that was individualized, that was personalized, that was specific for that person. So it really solved a lot of problems for the regenerative medicine field. Another thing that the iPSC technology allowed us to do is to understand disease processes better. Tell us a little bit about that, about how iPSC technology can help us to understand disease processes in specific patients.
Thank you, John, for this wonderful question. Actually, I started my training in cardiac biology. So after I joined a year, I asked physicians, do you have any patient with cardiac disease? Actually, they gave us a patient with the elastin mutation, the SVAS patient, supravalvular aortic stenosis patient with the mutation in vascular smooth muscle cells. So we were introduced in vascular smooth muscle cells. We perform disease mechanism study, and that introduced us toward vascular disease modeling and vascular engineering. And besides vascular disease, a couple of years ago, actually last year, we published a paper in Circulation to study biomechanical sensing of cardiac hypertrophy. That was a humbling experience. We met our physician, and we met a family that a baby at the age of 1.3-year-old showing this severe hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and we utilize patient blood and as well as patient blood cells from the parents. So the proband has a mutation in gene, the myosin, also in the sensor, in the muscle limb protein. And then through this bed to bench, back to bed approach, it's such a wonderful, humbling experience that patients teach PhD scientists like us to rethink about biology. So this specific patient family help us to re-understand the organ size, the heart size regulation through the communication between the engine myosin machinery in cooperation with the sensor, the muscle limb mechanical sensor machinery. So details were reported in our manuscript last year in Circulation. But this technology provides us a wonderful opportunity to start from patients and then understand the disease mechanism and provide a new therapeutic opportunity for new drug development that can treat this devastating heart failure disease.
Wonderful. You mentioned how hemodynamic forces affect the cardiovascular tissue, and you've learned in developing your models, your tissue-engineered blood vessels, that hemodynamic forces seem to be very important in the generation of an effective tissue-engineered blood vessels. So when you expose, my understanding is that you expose these scaffolds that you're cellularizing, you expose the scaffolds to hemodynamic forces. Tell us a little bit about how hemodynamic forces are critical in the generation of one of these, an effective tissue-engineered blood vessel.
Yeah, thank you, John. As we all know, the blood vessels or heart, they are constantly exposed to mechanical forces. So we utilize this peristaltic pump to mimic a human heart. it provides this peristaltic pumping activity. So therefore, the blood vessel cells seated on our tubular scaffold can sense the cyclic stretch, and the pumping frequency mimic the human heart beating frequency. So therefore, the cells we put on the scaffold, they're exposed to the mechanic cues, very similar to the in vivo blood vessel environment. So this turned out to be very essential for the blood vessel cells to receive the mechanic signal, to understand how much workload they need to deal with, and then generate the blood vessels that can perform their function after we put them in vivo, in animal model first, but eventually to patients.
Did you try to generate the tissue-engineered blood vessels in the absence of hemodynamic forces? What did those blood vessels look like in the absence of hemodynamic forces?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We consider those conditions as control, like static condition based the vascular graft engineering. So for those grafts, typically the matrix could not be remodeled very well in response to mechanical cues, and they may provide a thick axonal matrix, but the matrix mechanical strength or matrix quality may not be comparable to the matrix that was trained by mechanical cues.
Great. That's very interesting. And another thing you learned in generating at least small diameter grafts was that the endothelium was very important. And tell us a little bit about that, the importance of the endothelium in maintaining patency of a blood tissue-engineered blood vessel.
Yeah, thank you, John. Generally speaking, for vascular grafts above 6 millimeter in diameter, there may not be absolute need for industrialization. However, for vascular grafts between 1 millimeter to 5 millimeter in diameter, these grafts are required for coronary artery bypass in the heart and peripheral artery bypass in the leg. So these grafts without endothelium, they would undergo the clotting immediately. So we typically utilize grafts with decellularization, so we can store the grafts very effectively, and they are off the shelf. So these grafts contain collagen surface. So when blood touch collagen without endothelium, the blood coagulation would happen. So utilizing arterial shear stress or venous shear stress to train these iPSC-derived endothelium cells in our bioreactor before implantation. So these endothelial cells, we secrete the factors matrix that mimic the in vivo context. So therefore, after implantation, this endothelialized graft could prevent the clotting and also prevent the overproliferation of the media vascular smooth muscle cells in the wall. So endothelial cells, therefore, are very essential for this vascular graft implantation. And even for larger grafts, so Mother Nature generated vascular grafts, even like above 6 meters in diameter, we always see endothelium at the luminous surface of large vessel. So in clinical trial, without industrialization, the primary patency after 1 year is about 28%, further indicating that endothelial function may also help large vessel in vivo function as well. So we are thinking utilizing these immunocompatible off-the-shelf endothelial cells to to coat the luminal surface of small and large vesicle grafts, so they can be utilized for implantation, preventing clotting, preventing stenosis, and also without the need for continual use of antiplatelet drugs, because continual use of anticoagulation drug may also bring cardiovascular side effects. So we consider this immunocompatible universal industrialization can be very helpful for vascular engineering and repair regeneration.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea, and knocking out the MHC complexes 1 and 2. And then you also, my understanding is you also incorporated CD47, which I believe has the nickname of the "Don't Eat Me" receptor. Is that correct? That is something that cells use to avoid immune surveillance. That's very clever, because potentially you could use those cells in any patient. Is that your plan?
Yeah, especially for acute patients injured in accidents, or patients or soldiers injured in the war. So their own vein, autologous veins, may not be available due to this kind of severe situation in accidents like blast. So therefore, off-the-shelf endothelial grafts can be very helpful. And autologous iPSC therapy could be very expensive, and because of all kinds of quality control process. Also, the autologous iPS therapy would not work for the acute patient population. So therefore, to make the iPS cost-effective, largely accessible to the general public, so this universal off-the-shelf therapy can be feasible for eventually human application.
You're moving to the clinic because you've solved a lot of problems in that process. You've made a scaffold that is strong. You made a scaffold that is non-thrombogenic because you're cellularizing it with endothelial cells. Also, you're avoiding immunogenicity with the MHC 1 and 2 knockout. CD47 overexpressing cells. One issue that I haven't heard you talk about is senescence in the cells, because you're requiring these cells to replicate quite a bit, and they're also may be exposed to some injury in the process of the generating the grafts. Have you looked at markers of senescence in your tissue-engineered blood vessels? How do they appear? Is there any evidence of DNA damage, beta-galactosidase, the senescence marker, or other senescence markers?
Yeah, thank you, John, for this very important question. So, because iPS cells can self-renew in theory indefinitely, so therefore we generate immunocompatible endothelial cells and cultivate them for maybe 5-6 passages, and then we finish them. And for high passage endothelial cells, it appears these endothelial cell colony forming cells, the ECFC, can be derived from iPS cells. They can be passaged to like passage 20. So they can proliferate much more robustly, and so they mimic the cord blood-derived endothelial colony-forming cells. Those endothelial cells indeed can proliferate many generations, and with a minimum senescence even at passage 20.
Wonderful.
And so that's the major population we are very interested in, so-called endothelial, maybe colony-forming cells, ECFC, as a therapeutic purpose for future application.
That's wonderful. It seems like you've knocked down a lot of the problems, a lot of the hurdles that are preventing you from getting to the clinic. In the few minutes that we have remaining, tell us about the roadmap to the clinic that you see? What more do you need to do to get the tissue-engineered blood vessels to patients?
Thank you, John, for this question. This is very challenging, very exciting question. So it's always like safety is number one issue. So safety, number one. And so we would like to have the good manufacturer practice facility, the GMP facility. So we can team up with colleagues from Mayo Clinic who have established the GMP IPSL facility, and many other colleagues as well. Teamwork is always a wonderful opportunity for collaboration. And so besides GMP facility, the safety of the vascular graft, we also need to consider. Just like any cell-based therapy, including the CAR-T-based cancer therapy, you always need to consider when cells go awry, how could you remove the cells? So therefore, we are considering this safety switch. So we engineer the suicidal gene into the universal iPS cells. So when there's any small minor chance for this abnormal function, we can inject ganciclovir, we can remove the cells. And so before application, of course, we do whole genome sequencing, make sure cells are safe. And with this safety switch engineered in the cells, it will give us more confidence about the safety of the cells. And also, it depends on what kind of disease you are treating. If you want to treat a beating heart disease, you need the cells to be there all the time to provide a pumping activity. So we need a permanent cellular engraftment. However, for vascular graft engineering, so you may provide universal immunocompatible cardiovascular grafts, and then the host cells may repopulate in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later. The graft will be completely patient's own endothelial cells, patient's own vascular smooth cells. It will be patient's own graft. The initial grafts provide immediate endothelial function, mechanical support. So that eventually lead to a patient's own graft generation through remodeling, recellularization. So that's another perspective for so-called perhaps transient universal stem therapy. You provide a wonderful foundation, but then let the host finish the job, generating host's own vascular graft for repair regeneration.
We are coming to the end of the show. Yibing, I wanted to thank you. I also wanted to offer, we have here the Johnson Cell Center. We also have, which is a GMP cell center, we also have GLP capabilities for large animal testing. And we also have a GMP program in RNA therapeutics. And maybe we could work together to help you get through as you march down this roadmap to the clinic. Perhaps we could help you. You've been one strong soldier in the effort toward cardiovascular regeneration. And you have comrades here in Houston, your old hometown. So let us help out. Let's talk some more. I find your work very exciting and could potentially be a wonderful solution for the vascular disease that we have throughout this country and the world. Well, Yibing, thank you again for joining us today.
John, thank you so much. So I love Houston, and I follow Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets is rising now. So I'm very proud to be a Texan, Houstonian, and I'm very grateful to Houston Methodist Hospital. My older daughter was born in Houston Methodist Hospital, so it will be a great pleasure to collaborate with Houston Methodist Hospital, and then moving basic translational research to clinical application and help saving many patients and enhancing their quality of life.
Thank you
very much, John. Looking forward for collaboration.
Thank you, Yibing. I'm going to follow up with you for sure. You've been listening to Dr. Yibing Chung from Yale. He showed us his wonderful work with iPSC-derived cardiovascular cells. Thank you for joining us at the cutting edge of RNA therapeutics and the cutting edge of cardiovascular medicine.